What if you had your very own AI agent that could write prompts for you based on your style and need to get the best outputs? Well, that's what we're going to run through today with this AI prompt writing engineer that instantly adapts to any model without you having to write a single line of code. Let's jump into a quick demo to see how it works. So the first way of doing this is we're able to come into test workflow. We'll be able to write our prompt here. So we can say, we could do, please write me a prompt to do some deep research into the rise of LLMs. We could say that. We're going to want a deep reasoning model. We're going to say that we have a preferred vendor, maybe it's OpenAI in this case. We want it to be a business tone, and we want to have it for C-suite, and we want an actual prompt to be output. We don't want it to be the usable one. So we can send this off. What it will be able to do is automatically analyze this request coming through. Again, this is the first use case. We're also going to go through how to use a chat input. We're also going to be able to come across to our deep reasoning chain. So as we can see here, it's now got the ability to go through and analyze the request that we've got for it. As we can see here in this previous example, it goes through, analyzes the requests and send it back, just as we can see here. Now we're going to get it back into our master agent, and then we'll be able to see the output. So if we come back into our form, as you can see here, that's the prompt ready to go for us to be able to use. Now let's run through the second example of how to be able to chat with it and get the exact same outputs. So if we come into our other agent, as you can see here, we've got a previous example. So what we can do is just send off another example. We could send something like that off. What it will be able to do is analyze our request that's come through. So for example, in this case, we're looking for a prompt to come out. It's summarized the prompt that we've actually inputted. We're saying it's a normal request, OpenAI. So instead, what it's going to do is come through and automatically trigger our other workflows. So as we've got here, it's got the ability to dynamically interact with all of the different AI LLMs that we've got at the moment. As you can see here, it's already gone through, successfully completed that. That's how quick it is. And if we come back into our master agent that we've got here, it's now going to go through and start trying to just finalize that output for us so that we'll be able to use it. There we go, it's now successfully completed that step. And if we come into here, it looks like we've got a clear goal, objections, instructions, context. So again, we will be able to copy all of this information and then put it into another LLM if we wanted to be able to go through and do it, or we would be able to go through, and as we've got the chat history, we would be able to just ask for this to be outputted so that we could use it. If you want to get access to all of the resources, all you need to do is come across to our community. We'll come into Classroom, we're going to come across to AI agents. We're going to then come down to the bottom here and you'll have all of the different options available, such as chat input, form input, as well as the workflows. And if you want to learn more around how to do some prompting, we've actually got our prompt engineering masterclass that we've got in here. We've got the two sections around just some in-context learning, thought generation, and much, much more as well that you can go through, check them out and see how to improve your prompting. But as mentioned, we're going to be running through from scratch how to be able to build this today. So we're going to start off with our form submission here. So we want to come into a new workflow as we've got here. We can actually upload our files. So for example, if we come to import from file, we can upload our form submission one here and it'll be all ready to go straight away. Again, that's if you want to use the resources. If not, let's go through and build it from scratch together. So first thing we're going to do is form. We're going to do NA10 form. We're going to do on new form event. We'll have our test URL and production URL. So test URL we're going to use for the testing. Production we're going to use if we come through and activate our actual scenario. So we'll come back into our form. We'll come down to here and give it a quick title. We can say prompt AI agent. We can say end your prompts to get the best output possible. There we go. Now we're going to need to go through and add quite a few different elements. This is just for a more structured form. So as we've got the example here, that's what the output we're looking for. And to achieve that, if we open this up, we're going to be asking for what that prompt is from the user. We're going to say if they have a specific model that they're looking to use, the deep reasoning, normal, fast. We're going to see if they've got a preferred vendor, tone, as well as the actual use case and the output that they're looking for as well. So let's go through and add all of these in. So we can say, what is your prompt? We can put it in here, please enter your current prompt and we will aim to improve it. There we go. We can add some dots afterwards as well. We can do as a required field. Again, we can come do and do the next one. What type of model are you looking for? We can change this to our drop-down list. We can say that we're looking for our deep reasoning. We can do the second option, which is going to be around our normal, or we can say that maybe we want a fast response. So we can come down to the next one and say, do you have a vendor? We can give this the different element list. So we can do drop down list. We could say Google, we could say OpenAI, and we could say Anthropic. Again, they're just a few examples. You can add different ones in here if you wanted to, or you could get it to automatically identify them. We can come through and add the next one here, which is add form element. We'll say tone. Again, we'll make this a drop-down list. We can say that we want it business. We can say that we want it casual, serious, or sarcastic. We can then come through to the next form submission. So we're going to ask it for its use case, and then we're going to come through and do drop down list. And we could say that we want HR or we want C-suite. Again, a few different options there. You can fully change that to what you wanted. We can add another and last final element. We can change this to drop down list. We can say prompt, or we can say usable output. There we go. So now if I do test step, what this will do is it open up onto another screen. So as you can see here, we've now got the ability to enter our prompt. We've also got the option for selecting our model that we're looking for. If we've got a preferred vendor, we need to do the tone. I'll just change that to tone. We've got a use case as well, and we've got the desired output. So again, this is going to be able to get a really great output from that agent that we're working with. So we'll give this some example data. We can say test. We can just say deep reasoning. We'll say we've got OpenAI's preferred vendor. We've got business, C-suite, and we're looking for a prompt. We'll submit that. Now, if we come back into our agent, we can see that it's captured all of this information, which is great. That's exactly what we need. So I'll come back up to where we've got tone and just make sure that you add the E in there. And I'll come to the right-hand side, and we're just going to pin this data for now so that we can go through and use our testing with it. So as this is the master agent, the next stage we're going to do is just our AI agents. We'll come across to advanced AI. We'll come down to our AI agent. We're going to need to change this to define below. We're going to add our system prompt in there as well. So this is going to improve the outputs that we're looking for. Now I'm going to copy and paste across the previous example that we had and open this up. And what we're looking to chain is all of these different elements in here. So what we're going to have is what is the user's current prompts. That would be that top one there. The model type, we're looking for this one in here. If we've got a preferred vendor is already correct, we're looking for tone. So we'll just copy this across. We'll actually change this to with an E because as we go through in the future, we've actually improved that. So we'll just give it a rerun it in a minute. We'll copy across a use case as well as the desired output as well. So this is what we're passing into the AI agent so it knows what we're looking for. And now we need to give it a prompt so it's guided on what that output is we're looking for. So I'll paste our current prompt in there, change it to expression and pop it out so you can see what it is. Again, we've basically just explained it's a master prompt writing agent. It's got two sub-execution workflows for building out our prompt. It's able to do the deep reasoning models or normal model mode. So that's your ChatGPT 4 versus your O1 models, as well as your objective to trigger these workflows as need be to complete it for the user. We'll rename this to our master prompt writing agent. And there we go. So now we've got our AI agent ready to go. We need to add our LLM. So we'll come through and do model. We'll do OpenRouter in this case. I love OpenRouter because it gives you access to all of the different LLMs. So if we come across to here, for example, if I search for Gemini, there we go, we can use that. If I use OpenAI, we've got that. If we search for Claude, we've got that. If we search for our DeepSeek, we've got access to that as well. So again, this is why it's a great platform. If you come across to keys, once you've signed in, you can do create a key and you'll be able to use it. All you'll need to do is copy this and then paste it into here where we have our create new credentials, paste in there, and you'll be all good to go and save. All you'll need to do is make sure that it goes green at the top, just so that you're able to use it in the future. That will then give us access to all of these different LLMs, which is how we're going to go through and make it dynamic a bit later on in the sub workflows. For now, we're just going to be using our OpenAI GPT-4o Mini, just so that we keep the costs low and we're able to get a good output. We'll just rename this to our AI brain. We can add our memory in there if we want to, but we're not going to do that at this stage just because it's a form. We're going to use the memory when we do the chat version. Now we're going to need to come through and add our tools back in. So we'll do tool number 1 and we'll come through and do tool number 2. And then what we're going to do is just rename these. We've got deep reasoning, and then we've also got our normal models. There we go. So now these are the two options that we're going to be able to run through so that we can get the outputs that we need. What we're also going to need to do is make sure that we get a great formatted output back. So at this stage, we'll just do form, and then we're going to do form ending. We'll give this a your output as the title. And then what we're going to do is do a completion message, which is going to be from our AI agent in a second, but we've not got that set up. So we're going to go through and complete that now. So how does it know what to do? Well, for example, we're going to need to go through and add in some description. So for example, here we'll do deep reasoning. We're going to need to add a description in there. So again, what we've got here is just some examples. So for example, if it's stated that what type of model we're looking for is deep reasoning, it's going to execute this. If it's not stated, it's going to go through it and use the normal version. So we'll come through and do normal models. So we'll do normal underscore models, and then we'll paste our description in here. Again, just replacing this, basically saying unless the output is deep reasoning, we're going to basically go down this route so that we can go through and leverage our different elements. Now we need to have the sub workflows. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create 2 new scenarios or workflows. I've actually done that already. So we're going to come across to our deep reasoning workflow, and we've also got the normal model workflow as well. So once you've created those, what we're going to need to do is we're going to do it step by step. So we'll do deep reasoning first. We'll do executed by another workflow. And then what we'll do is define the fields below. We'll add in. We're going to need to add in the key parts. We're going to do users prompt. We're going to come through and do preferred model. We're going to add in model type. We're going to add in our tone. We're going to add in use case. And we're going to add in our last one here, which is preferred output. So now what we can do is we can do save just to make sure this is all updated. We'll come back into our agent. We'll come down to deep reasoning. And then what we're going to do is search for our one. So we'll do prompt. And then we're looking for, we've got the new workflow there. Then we've got the deep reasoning workflow. And now we're going to have all of these fields pop up, which is what we're going to need to share across with that workflow. So we'll put across where we've got the prompt. We're going to do the model type. So we've got preferred model there. Model type is what are you looking for? We've got the tone, so we'll just pull that across. Again, we'll just need to change that to an E because we updated it earlier. We'll do a use case as well. We're then going to come down and do preferred output, so desired output. There we go. Have we missed anything? No, that looks all good to go. So this is all going to be passed across to our agent. I'm just going to update this so that we've got it as tone instead of, there we go. We'll save that. And then what we'll do is we'll just test it. So there we go. Now it's capturing it as tone, so we'll be able to use that in the future. So what it's now going to be able to do is pass that information across. So if we just give this a quick test, we'll come into here. We'll just change this so that it's looking for our normal model. We'll do normal. And then we'll just update our prompt to say, please give me an in-depth analysis on Moore's. There we go. We'll do save. Moore's law is very interested. I recommend if you're in this space around automation AI, you go and give it a check out. So now if we come back into our workflow, if we give this a test step, actually what it should go through and activate our deep reasoning model. So now if back into our workflow, what we should see is that it's all good to go. We executed that successfully. So if we come into here, we should see executions succeeded. So if we've got the information here, it's now all being passed across, which is great. If we just refresh this, we should look for the most recent one. There we go. So now we know it's all being passed across. So now we can go through and add some more information in. So first things first, we're going to do set. We're going to do set here. We're going to need to go through and manually map in some fields. So in this use case, I'm just specifying what the actual AI agents are that are available. So for example, we could do OpenAI model. We can copy that and we could do fast because there's the O1 model and as well as Deep 3 as well as O3 Mini. We could do Anthropic, and then we could do Google. So now we've got the option to add all of these in. But how do we know what the different variables or values are? What we'll do is we'll come through and we'll do our basic LLM chain. We're going to need to do is define below. We're going to go through and give that a test in a minute. So we'll just come through and do test step. If we open this up, we'll now be able to put it across for our prompt. So what we're going to need to be able to do is paste in there. And then we'll just pop this out. And what we've basically said for this AI agent is it's now got the ability to identify the most suitable model based on what's available to be able to pass across into our AI agent to get the output that we're looking for. So now what we're looking for is to get rid of this part here, so the user's prompt. We're going to change this for model desired, so we can do preferred model. Tone is going to stay the same, use case is going to stay the same, and then what we're going to do is just pass across all of these different models that we specified a bit earlier so that the LLM knows what's available and can provide that recommendation. So now if we go through and do save, and now we're going to go through and add in our open router module again, because as you can see here, we've now got OpenAI GPT-4o Mini, for example, and if we change that to expression, we're going to be able to copy that. So now what we need to go through is find all the deep reasoning ones. So for example, if we look at O1, what we can see is OpenAI O1. We'll change that to expression, copy that, come out of there, back into our manual fields, and paste at the top. So that's how quick and easy it is to add in the different models. So now we're going to go through and do the fast versions. So all we need to do is come into our open router. We'll change this to be fixed again. We'll do O3. We can see O3 mini, change to expression, copy, and then paste in here for our fast version. So now I'll go through and just add in Anthropic and Google. There we go, and I've added the latest ones that we've got in there at the moment. So again, that makes it nice and easy for you to update as the newer models come out. And we'll just change this to our multi-AI brain. Well, what we'll be able to do is change the one that we've got in our AI agent. So if I come back into the LLM, what we'll be able to do is just do OpenAI, for example, for mini. There we go, we'll add that in there. What we're now going to be able to do is if I just change this back to actually having for a mini, we'll then be able to pass this off to our AI agent. So now if I come through, we'll be able to do our advanced AI. We're able to do AI agent. We're going to be able to define the below. So this is going to be all the prompt information for how to write it. And that's where we're going to need our system message as well. We'll come back to that. But now if I come through to chat model, we can use open router. We're going to change this to be the expression. So that's where we're going to put across the text from our last basic LLM chain, and we'll be able to rename this to multi-AI brain. So now it's going to be able to automatically leverage all of the different models as we need to for our outputs. So if I come through and do test step, we've now gone green, so it knows all of those different models to use. So we're just going to need to give it some dummy data. So if I come into here, we'll be able to paste across what we had in our prompt a minute ago, in our agent a minute ago. So we just change this to what would have been passed across. So now if we come through, we're looking for a deep reasoning model. So we'll cut and we'll paste in there. We're looking for OpenAI as our preferred vendor. Our tone, we're looking at business. So we'll paste that in there. Our use case is C-suite. So again, we'll add that in there. And we're looking for the output to be the prompt. So we'll cut and paste in there. We'll get rid of all of this. And then what we'll be able to do is save, and we'll be able to pin that data so we can go through and do some testing. So now if I come through and do test step, what we should be able to do is analyze all of this information. So again, if I come into if I pop this out, what we've actually got in here is we're going to need to go through and make a few quick changes. So as you can see on the right hand side, I love this about NA10, you can see the outputs or actually what the AI would be working with. So as you can see here, we're just going to need to go through and change all of this information so that we've got exactly what the user would have. So for example, user prompt, we're then going to do desired models. So we'll do model type. We're then looking for design. We're going to do preferred model. We're going to add in our tone in there. So business. We're going to have our use case is C-suite, and we've got the other ones in there. And then these will change as we go through and give it some data. So for example, if I come back across to a previous execution, as you can see here, this is what the AI is going to be able to see so that we can go and use it in the future as well. So we'll come out of here, we'll do save. Now we'll be able to do the OpenAI's brain. So for example, here, we'll get rid of this. We're going to put in our text here. So now we'll be able to automatically, dynamically update with the actual response that we want. So for example, here, we'll change this to our deep reasoning prompt agent. So now we need to go through and add in our prompt. So we're going to come into here. I'm going to copy and paste our example, and then we'll pop this out. So again, we're going to need to update the information that we've got in here at the moment. We're going to change this so it's all green. Again, for example, the user's prompt, we'll add that in there. Model required, we're going to do our preferred model. We're going to say the tone, the use case, we're going to say the desired output. So as again, we'll add that in there. And again, what we're saying is we're basically going to provide them a prompt unless they specify they're looking for a direct output. Again, we'll come down and add our prompt in here for the actual agent. So if I change this to expression, we'll pop this out and then we'll paste in there. We've basically given it some examples. So I really recommend you checking out some articles such as this one here. I'll include the links in the chat below, which talks to, for example, how to actually structure the prompt for an O1 model, so your OpenAI model. And what I've done is I've actually included this in our actual LLM. So for example, here, we've now got some example ones for OpenAI. If we come a bit further down, we've got some examples for Gemini, and we've got one for Claude as well. So you'll be able to get that best output possible if you're doing that prompt. Now, what this will be able to do is send that information back to our master form agent. So what we'll go through and do is give it a quick test. So we'll come back into our agent, we'll make sure that's saved. And then what we're going to do is do save and then test workflow, and it should come through and analyze our deep reasoning. If we come back into our workflow, what we should see is that it comes through to executions. It's running for 9 seconds, 10 seconds. Again, these higher deep reasoning, models are going to take longer to provide that response back. So just think about how long it's going to take and provide that response back to the customer. But you're going to get a much better output if you then go and use it for your specific use cases. So as you can see there, it took 24 seconds to complete. We're able to get the information that came in. It's now going to go through and actually analyze it. So for example here, again, we can see how it's updated within NA10 automatically. We've got in-depth analysis of Moore's law. We've got OpenAI's preferred use case, all of this. And if we come out of here into our AI agent, again, what we'll be able to see is that if we come down to our model name, it's used our OpenAI O1 because we specified that. And that's because our basic LLM chain has been that text, which we passed in as well for it to see. So now if we come back into our agent, what we'll see is it's going through and trying to update that form. But again, we haven't provided that form at the moment. It's not activated, so it's not going to go through and do it. What we can do though is actually do our completion message. So this is what's going to share back to the customer. I think NA10 may need to do some tweaking here because when I actually go through and do some customization, which I'll show you a bit later on, it still comes through and makes it as like a text altogether versus being able to actually fine tune it and output it exactly the way we would want it. We'll do save, and then what we're going to do is just cancel that workflow so that it stopped trying to actually provide that response back. Now we're going to go through and do our normal models. So this is going to be using ChatGPT 4 or anything like Claude 3.5 Haiku or anything like that, so that we could actually have a low reasoning model provide that output. So again, we're going to come across to a new workflow. So as we've got here, we'll be able to do our when executed by another workflow. We're going to need to add in all of our fields exactly the same as we did last time. So I'm actually going to come back across, we'll copy this, and then what we'll do is we'll paste in. So now what we should have access to is all that information ready to go. And again, what we're going to go through and do is just change some of this information. So for example, de-reasoning, we'll put it as normal. We can say, please write me a prompt to develop new marketing for my business and its new product associated with a spring launch campaign. There we go. We'll do save. And then what we'll be able to do is go through and add the rest in. So exactly the same as before, we'll come across, we're going to copy our different set functions. So we'll add that in there, we'll do paste. Now what we're going to need to do is change this, of course, to our lower reasoning models. So instead of OpenAI O1, we're going to need to change that to the lower version. So we'll come through and we'll do our advanced AI and then basic LLM chain, exactly the same as before. We'll add in our open router. Now we're going to need to add in, for example, GPT-4a mini. So if we copy this, come out of here, we're going to do it instead of the fast version, and then we'll be able to go through and add in the rest. So I'll do that quickly and come back. So there we go. I've added a few in there. So we've got GPT 4.5, we've got O4 mini, Haiku, and then Flash to be able to use. Again, you can freely change this to whatever you wanted. Maybe you want Claude, maybe you want Grok, maybe you want DeepSeek. You'll be able to add that in there as well. Do our AI brain. There we go. And now we're going to need to add our prompt in here. Again, this is similar to before. We'll do define below. We'll paste our prompt in there. We'll just change this to expansion. And then we're going to need to go through and add in our information again. So we'll come through and just change all of these fields. So again, the current prompt to improve is the user's prompt. The desired model is actually going to be our OpenAI. We've got the tone the same, the use case the same. And then we've got preferred output. We can do space, and then we can add that in there as the prompt. And now we're going to need to go through and just test that last step so we can see that. So if I come out of here, we'll do save, we'll do test step. I'm just going to go through and it looks like I put normal with, there we go. So now we've updated that. We'll do save, we'll do test step. And now if I come back into the agent, what we should be able to see is that we can add in our different information. So for example, in here, we can do our OpenAI model, we'll enter, we'll do our fast version, we'll add in Anthropic. So we'll just do enter, and then we'll do our Google one as well. And then we're going to need to come up to the top here and just change this back to the normal version. So we'll add that in there. So again, you can change maybe the default model you want it to go back to, depending on how you work with it. So again, fully customizable to how you would want. We're going to go through and do save. And then we're going to go through and add in our AI agent again. So advanced AI agent. Now we're going to need to go through and define below. What we'll be able to do is paste our prompt in there. So we'll change to expression. We'll do paste. We'll open this up. Again, we need to go through and just change this. So we're going to do the model required. We're going to do user's prompt, all of this sort of stuff. So we're going to come across to our user's prompt. we're going to do our preferred model. We're going to do the desired output. So again, this is going to be preferred output, and we'll add that in there as well. Now we'll be able to go through and do our chat model. So again, open router. We're going to change this to our output from our basic LLM chain. So we'll just test step here. Then we're going to come through and open this back up, and we'll paste that in there. So now it's got the ability to dynamically change and pull the inputs as it needs. We'll do save. We'll just change this to our multi-AI brain. There we go. And we'll rename this to our normal model prompt agent. We'll do save. Now we've got the ability to trigger both of these workflows. So if we come back into our workflow, what we'll be able to do is normal models, check that it's sending all that information through. Yep, looks like it is, which is great. And now we can go through and give it a test. So if we come through and we'll do edit, we'll paste in what we had from our previous one and unpin the other one. So in our workflow, it's good to go. What we're going to go through and do now is just do test workflow. So what it should go through is trigger our normal model. So if we come back into our workflow, what we should see under executions is that it's starting any second. So if I just refresh this, it looks like we didn't save it. So I need to save, refresh. It looks like it should go through. It looks like it's stuck in an infinite loop because I forgot to add it in here for the information because we need to add in our system prompt. So we'll just cancel this. We'll come back into our agent. We're going to need to come into our editor. We're going to go to normal prompt. We'll add in our system message, and then we'll copy and paste there. We'll do expression, pop this out just so you can see. Again, this is the best way that I found to prompt it. We've got an entire masterclass on the community actually around all the different types of prompting, how to get it best to work. There's other videos on the channel which include linked above around how to structure it. I find that the best way of doing it is almost like a Greek temple. You want a really clear goal or objective, and then you have some different parts within it. So context, role, tone, formatting. You can also give it some instructions, as well as an example, at least 5 to 20 to really improve the output. So their example inputs and the outputs that you're looking for, and then critical information if you want to add that in there as well. So if we came back into our model, as you can see here, we've got all of that included there. We've got goal, role, tone, formatting. We've got some instructions. We've got example inputs and outputs. We've actually got 5 in this use case. We've given it some context as well as some critical information. So again, you can go through and just provide that, and it will improve the output straight away dramatically. So we'll actually go through and re-trigger this workflow. So we'll just change this onto executions, come back into our agent. So as we've got here, we've got the form ready to go. We'll do test workflow. It should come through and trigger this normal model. What we should see is that it comes through and triggers our workflow. So if we come back into here, what we should see is that it's running. So there we go, 4, 5, 6 seconds. That's exactly what we want. It should come through and automatically provide a response. Of course, we don't have that output form at the moment. What we should see is it goes through and gives us the output that we're looking for. So there we go, it's running. And then if we come back into our agent, we should get a response any second. So it looks like it completed it. There we go. So if we refresh this, we'll probably see that it's already completed. There we go. So we got successful execution, took 30 seconds to go through. So if we just open this up, what we can see is it had all the information passed across. So marketing copy for my business, it's asked for a prompt. So we should see the output here, which is great. That's exactly what we want. Now, if we come back into our normal model, we should see, yep, we've got it back, but it's trying to send it back to that form, which of course we don't have at the moment. So we'll just close this down. We'll do stop. So now what we'll be able to do is give it a full test end to end just to see how it works. And then we'll go through and show you how to use the chat version instead really quickly. So we'll just unpin this data. So come unpin. We'll actually be able to go through and do save. We're going to do test workflow, which will open it up. We'll say, please write me a prompt for writing a blog that is about AI automation. We can say that we're looking for a normal model. We'll have a preferred vendor. We can say, for example, Anthropic. We'll do the tone is going to be casual. Use case is maybe marketing. Desired output is a prompt. We'll submit this, and then what we should do is get this executed in the background. So as you can see here, it's executing and it's going to pass this information back to us in the form, and we'll show you how to make a few changes to that as well. So if we come into our execution workflow, what we should see is if we refresh this, it is actually going through and doing our new one in the background, which as you can see, there we go. It's going to be running through. By the looks of it, it'll take around 30 seconds to complete. So what we'll do is we'll wait for this to finish. And again, all the resources are in the link below if you want to get access to this, as well as the video and material on additional prompting techniques and how you can do it. There we go. So it took around 34 seconds to complete. It's going through and providing that response back in the form. So now if we open it up, as you can see here, we've now got that response back. And if we wanted to change this so it looks more like this sort of output, all we would need to do is come back into our AI agent, open this up, come down and do custom form styling, and then we will be able to open this up, and as you can see here, it's got all the different information, color scheme, spacing, everything like that. And I'll paste in there where I've just updated the background, so again, access to the resources, and you'll be able to find this. And now what we see is if I do test step, it's now automatically updated so that you can go through and have it as that format. So that's a really quick example to show you how we can get that end-to-end output using a full version. But let's go through and quickly show you how to use the chat version as well. So we're going to open up a new agent. We're going to come through and do chat trigger. We're then going to add in our basic LLM chain in here. We're going to do connected to chat trigger node. We're going to require specific outputs, and we're going to need a prompt in here. So we'll open this up. So I'll paste our prompt in there. There we go. So as we can see here, we've now got the ability to have those options again, and it will be able to go through and specify them in the output. We've said that we needed a specific output. So what is that? Well, if we come down here, we'll use our basic LLM chain and our GPT-4o mini to start off with. Output parser, we're going to do JSON parsed output. We're going to need to give it an example, and that's going to be exactly the same as what we put in the prompt. So for example here, we've basically specified that we've got the prompt from the user, the associated model desired, deep reasoning, all of this sort of stuff, so that we can go through and capture that as we need. We'll come through and we'll just add that in there. Now we're going to need to add in our AI agent, there we go. Now we can go through and use the actual define below step, and then we're going to need to add in our prompt in here, which is exactly the same as what we had from a bit earlier, but we're going to need to go through and make some changes. So we'll just add in our AI brain in there for a second, and we'll add in our tools. Will be exactly the same as these two, so we can come across, copy these, and then we can actually paste these in here just to save us some time. So we'll do paste, and then we'll pull these across. We'll do tool 1, and then we'll do tool 2. So now we've got the ability to call both of the models. So if we come through and give it a test, what we can say is, please write me a prompt to be able to write LinkedIn messages. We can send that off. Now what it should do is be able to prompt that for us in the AI chain so that we'll be able to get the output that we need, as we can see here. So it's now nice and formatted so that we can go through and use it. We'll come into AI agent. What we'll do is we'll pop this out. So now we can see that we've got all of this information here ready to go from what we had in that previous module in this basic LLM chain here. We're also going to need to go through and add in our system message, which is going to be exactly the same as our other agent. So we'll come in here, pop this out so you can see, and we're basically specifying that it's able to execute the 2 sub workflows. We're going to do save. We're going to come through to our normal model. We're going to need to change this because of course the input has now changed from before. So we'll get rid of this. And then we're going to say it's going to be our OpenAI and it's going to be our normal version. And we'll go through and update the rest of these, basically just using what we've outputted from our basic LLM chain so that it's nice and easy to use. So we'll get rid of all of this. There we go. So we've pulled all of them across. So now we'll be able to execute that workflow. We'll just do the same for our deep reasoning. There we go, all updated. So now we'll come through and do save. Now what we should be able to do is go through and trigger that end to end. So if we come through and do exactly the same message, it should come through and automatically trigger our normal model workflow. So if we come across, what we should see is that it automatically refreshes and provides us, there we go there, running for 5 seconds, 6 seconds. So now we're going to be able to chat with it normally and be able to get that output that we want. So we'll wait for this to come through, which should take around that 30 seconds. There we go. It looked like it took about 45 seconds this time, but we should get the output that we're looking for. It's come back to our AI agent. It's now formatting the output for us. And then if we load this chat up, it should be able to come into this chat nice and easy for us to be able to use it. So there we go. We've got the goal, output, role, tone, all of this is fully customizable to what you would want. So again, this is exactly what we would want to be able to go through and get the best outputs possible using the different LLMs that we work with. All of the resources are in the link below. Stay tuned for more around AI agents and automation, and have a great day.